through a couple of slides, including our agenda here. We're going to cover these different areas of Sage. We're going to look at estimating, scheduling a job, budgeting, subcontractor management, purchase orders, change orders, loan management, and also some reporting. A little bit more about Alliance Solutions Group, the company that we work for. Who we are, it's very simple. We're technology consultants. As Tim mentioned, I've been a controller in a construction company, and pretty much everybody here at Alliance has either worked for or supported the construction industry, whether they're on the operations side or on the accounting side. So we understand the business. We talk the talk. We have been there in your shoes, and we can help you assist with looking at new software and implementing that software. So here at Alliance, we cover the states in green and the neighboring states. We also work with two. We have offices where all those blue dots are, but we not only sell Sage 100, which we'll be looking at today, but also the Sage 300, was formerly known as Timberline, estimating products, cloud-based solutions. So while today you're learning about accounting and some project management, just know that there's other products out there that work with Sage that as your business grows and you have other needs, we can help you expand with those products as well. We also service a lot of customers. We have almost 7,000 clients, along with 21 certified consultants, and we've been Sage's #1 business partner here for the last 4 or 5 years. A little bit more about Sage, our vendor that the product is purchased through. Sage is a global company. They're primarily made up of a lot of different accounting products, with the construction vertical being their largest. They support 60% of the top ENR, which are the top 400 contractors in the country. Also 34% of builders are using Sage as their product. So Sage covers a lot of the construction industry. In fact, if you speak to your competitors or your colleagues in the industry, you'll probably find that quite a few of them are already using Sage. Now, the approach that we like to take here at Alliance that we've found has been proven is, one, we like to consult. So if you like what you see today, our next step would be to set up a more one-on-one session where we would learn more about your business, issues you're having. Then after we learn about your business, we'd like to help solve that with showing you the product, a more tailored presentation. And then finally, we deliver with the implementation process of our consultants helping you get the system set up, training you on how to use it, and finally going live on that software. And I think today you'll see a lot of value in Sage 100 Contractor, whether it's being able to get reports to help you make decisions faster, the automation of the integration between project management accounting that'll unstick processes that you've been incurring, being able to manage your workflow, limit risk through reporting, and just get more done in the day. So with that, let's hop into the software and take a look. So now you should be looking at the desktop of Sage 100. And before we go through the workflow that I planned out today, I'd like to just talk to you a little bit about the navigation that you're looking at here. So several years ago, Sage did a big rewrite of the user interface. Some of the things they did was add the ability to create shortcuts, where I've created a couple of shortcuts here today for our demonstration. This really helps the user maximize their time in Sage, because everything they need can be right here at their fingertips. Areas of the program they use regularly, maybe reports they run frequently, they can just come right in and get right to work. Sage also built these different workflows. So for example, if I'm doing some accounts payable, here's all the steps for accounts payable, whether it's maybe setting up a new vendor or updating an existing vendor, maybe reviewing a purchase order, then entering that invoice, finally selecting it to pay, and then printing those checks. These workflows can also be customized. Versus tab, and view, access product documentation. I could get to Sage's support, whether it's through their knowledge base or chatting with them. But I've always found the quickest way to get a hold of support is just to pick up the phone and call them. US based, they're based out of Portland, Oregon, so you can get them pretty much throughout the workday. And then lastly, if we look at our menu over here on the left, you can see right from our menu that we really cover all the tasks in the construction office, from accounting to project management to estimating and even scheduling. And if you've got some other outlying needs like equipment or inventory or maybe even service management, we can handle that as well. So with that, let's now walk through a typical workflow for a project. We have a new project and we need to estimate it. We need to put together a schedule for it, budget, issue purchase orders and subcontracts, deal with some change orders. So let's walk through that workflow. I'm going to go into Sage's job screen and pull up an existing job here. And we can see just by looking at this screen how construction specific this is. There's a lot of fields that I can capture information that maybe I was struggling to fill in another system, or maybe keep it in a separate Excel spreadsheet. I can keep up with the status of the job. Are we just maybe currently bidding the project? Did we not win the job? Or if we did, has it moved into a current phase and then eventually completed or closed? I'm able to keep up with the status of all my projects. I also can organize the types of work I do. Maybe I do some remodeling or some custom work versus maybe a few townhomes. I can create my own custom list of job types, and this will help me when I go to run reports. I can pick out just those types of jobs, for example. I'm able to track a lot of basic information about my project, including contacts on the job, maybe who the lender is, the loan number, salesperson, or the project manager on the job. Sage also has a lot of custom fields that I can track project dates, and all these fields are customizable. So if I don't like the name of it, well, I simply can go into the properties of the field and just change that name. And now that field's been renamed. Also, a lot of sales tracking information down here, square footage, which we'll look at later on when we can run reports that compare, that let me break my job down on a per square foot basis to look at the cost. Now, this screen is not only where I set the job up or maybe update the job information, but it also can be considered like the hub of the job, where I can get to a lot of information in one place. We put so much information into these systems. A lot of times I hear, accessing it is very difficult. Well, I think you'll find with Sage how easy it is. Right from this job screen, I'm able to click on, for example, the budget and view the budget for this job. And we're going to look at this in a little bit more detail. I could view a log of all the purchase orders that have been issued on this job. And just by simply double clicking on one of these, it will drill me into the actual purchase order to review. I can do the same with subcontracts. Here's all the contracts I've issued on the job. I could view all the change orders. Here's a log of all my changes on the job. I could view payments I've received, and then just an overall summary of my contract. What changes have been made, what changes are still open, and what balance is due to me. So now once I've got my project set up, I'm ready to start doing things for it. And probably the first place I'm going to start is putting together that estimate. So let's take a look at estimating. So if I come into my estimating and pull up my takeoff, which I think I've already got my job pulled up here, I pulled up this same project. Now I know a lot of people when I talk with them, they tend to be estimating in Excel. And I think that Sage's estimating lends itself very well to transitioning from Excel to an estimating system because it has a very much a look and feel of Excel. There's columns and rows. And a lot of the bulk of this is similar to maybe your current Excel spreadsheet where you've got a description and a quantity and a cost. But what Sage does is it starts to tie that information back into our databases, whether it's who am I buying the materials from, or what cost code it should go to budget for this, and even what tasks, so it can begin to build a schedule. So I'm able to estimate in whatever way I want. If I'm more of a production style builder, maybe I've built a template of everything that goes into my estimate. So here's my standard model that's got everything that I've gotten quotes on. And I simply import in a new estimate when I get ready to start. So I've built a template for maybe a specific model, or if I'm more of a custom builder, I still may use a template that's got all my items on it that I just use for a checklist. So a lot of this is lump sum amounts that I've plugged in. I've gotten bids from different subcontractors and I've dropped those amounts in. So this is the place where I can organize all of this, come up with what the cost of this home is going to be, then begin to tie it to who am I going to issue that subcontract to? Where should this cost end up on my budget so I can then compare my actual cost against that budget. What type of cost is it? Is it subcontracted? Is it materials? Is it miscellaneous? Is it my own labor? And then it's going to tie into scheduling because we're able to pick the task that this corresponds to. So it drops this item onto a schedule so I know to make sure I schedule for this because I've estimated for it. Now, I may want to get a little bit more sophisticated in my estimating and use what we call assemblies. And I've pulled up an assembly here, where here I've got an assembly for doing an exterior wall. It's got materials, it's got labor, it's got subcontractors. And I've gone through and calculated what it's going to cost per linear foot. And each one of these has a formula tied to it. So when I update my linear feet and calculate this, Sage is going to update the cost and it's going to change all these amounts based on that linear feet that I've entered in. So you've got several different ways of estimating in Sage, whether it's very detailed, like this example here, where I'm actually calculating all my sticks and bricks, or maybe it's more high level where I'm getting bids and I'm just accumulating all my bids and I'm eventually going to create contracts and purchase orders from those. So now, once I've finished this estimate and I'm happy with it, well, I simply come up to export and tell Sage to send this information over to create my budget. Send this information over to create my purchase orders, to create the contracts, to create change orders. So I don't have to come back in and do these individually. Sage is going to do it from all the information I've estimated. Now that my estimate's finished, I'm ready to start issuing those purchase orders and subcontracts. But everything begins, the cost control begins once I put that budget in place. So I created my estimate. My estimate has now created my budget. Let's take a look at what that looks like. So now we've broken this down by cost code and then split it out by type of cost. So I can see, what I've got in this job in material versus labor versus subcontracted, miscellaneous. And once I put this budget in place, we're telling Sage we want to manage against this budget. We want to be alerted if we exceed the budget. We want to be alerted if we're coding something to a cost code that has no budget. So now that I've got my budget set up, I can even choose to lock it. This would force users to have to go make their changes through change orders, allowing me to now have an audit trail of all the changes to the budget. So once our budget is in place, we may want to start putting together a schedule. Now, if I've created tasks within my estimate, it would have sent those over to my scheduling, allowing me to have the base of all the items that go into my schedule. Then all I have to do is connect them and assign a duration. Sage is going to use those items to create my schedule. It does create a critical path, and I can make changes to this. So if something is now delayed, I can adjust it, and it pushes everything else out on that critical path. I can even assign resources to different tasks. So for example, here under plumbing, I can look at what subcontractor resource is assigned. And by assigning resources, I can run a report that will give me I can give to my subcontractor that shows them all the different projects they're scheduled on. Up here. And this can be emailed out. This could be printed. It's up to you how you want to deliver this to your subcontractors. Here we go. Now, Sage does fully integrate with Microsoft Office, so any of our documents we can choose to email out directly through Outlook, save it as a PDF, or send it to Word or Excel. So this is our project notices report that tells the subcontractor what projects they're scheduled on and what their current start and finish dates are. So now we have a budget in place. We've started our schedule. Now let's go ahead and issue those purchase orders and subcontracts. So the purchase orders are going to be focused on materials that I need. And you'll see a lot of these screens that we go into now have a very similar look and feel with the details about the project at the top and then the individual line items at the bottom. Now this could have been generated from estimating, or I can also come in here and just enter this information in or copy and paste it. Any of these screens that have this Excel look and feel operate a lot like it, where I can copy and paste from someplace else. So this purchase order is tied to my supplier for this job. And, accessing information, if maybe I have a question on this, what other purchase orders have I issued to this supplier? Well, I can click on this bent arrow and it drills me into the details of this supplier. I can view, all the open invoices out there. I can also view a log of all the purchase orders that are out there as well for this supplier. So my purchase order has my individual line items with the quantities and the price, and then we'll produce a document that we can then send to our supplier. Similar to the schedule report, this also allows, I can email this directly out of here or save it as a PDF. So it's a pretty straightforward purchase order. You can see I've customized this and add the logo. We've got our line items listed out. So the purchase order is going to create a committed cost. So now when I look at reports, I'm able to see not only what I've budgeted for and what I've spent, but also what I've committed to spending because I've issued this purchase order for $14,761.56. Now we separately issue subcontracts. We kind of treat them a little different because with subcontracts, you're not as concerned with quantities and unit costs. You're more focused on the contract amount. So let me pull up a subcontract. And for home builders, I know a lot of you, pretty much all of you use subcontracts or subcontractors and, keeping up with partial payments because maybe you've got a schedule that they pay from, like a rough-in and a finish. They all have probably change orders at some point attached to them. And tracking all that can get a little difficult. And I think Sage has done a good job of keeping it easy. If you see from this one screen, I'm able to see, the original contract, but there's two line items. There's two pay amounts I was going to pay them. There's a column for changes, and this gets automatically updated when a change order has been issued that affects our subcontractor. I also can view what's been invoiced so far and then what's remaining. So I can get a lot of information from this screen without having to go to several different places. What I've originally sent the contract for, changes, invoiced, and remaining. Now, another issue with subcontractors is keeping up with insurance and other compliance items. And I'm going to drill back into my subcontractor screen, and I can track their certificate information. Sage allows me as many different types of certificates as I want, and I can log in what they are and when they expire and what we want Sage to do about it. Do we just want it to warn us, or do we want them to not allow us to pay them until their insurance is current? So those are things that you can set up on each subcontractor. Now, just like my purchase order, I can create a document to send them. I can customize it to make it look like whatever contract that I'm using right now. Take a look at that. And I'll just show you one that one of my clients had customized where they put in quite a bit of detail. They made this their contract. So they references their subcontractor and their project, but then there's several pages of contract. So you are able to customize this and make it your own. Instead of having to go to a separate Word document to create that, we can have Sage populate that form with the information from our subcontract screen and produce a final contract for you. Now, also from the subcontract screen, if I have questions on what was invoiced, what was the change order for, there's buttons right down at the bottom for me to access to get to those details. So I can click on invoices and see the invoices that have been issued and double click and drill in and see the actual detail on it. Same with changes as well. So now that we've issued our subcontracts, we've issued our purchase orders, we may start to run into some change orders. So let's take a look at how we handle change orders in Sage. So I'm going to pull up a change order. This one's pretty detailed that our customer has decided to add a bathroom to their rec room, their basement rec room. So I can list out, all the different line item details so they can see, these are the changes that are going to my customer. Okay, well, it's going to be this much more in framing or this much more in drywall cost. And then just like the purchase order subcontract, I can create a document. Let's take a look at that. So here's the line items of my change order with a total. And we also summarize the bottom previous change requests or change orders and this new one. So we can always keep tabs, our customer can always keep tabs on where they're at with their contract price. Now, I think Sage did a nice job of keeping this simple because not only we have a place to communicate the cost changes to our customer, but we also have this other tab over here where we can communicate the changes to our budget and also to our subcontractors. So these are the changes downstream, so to speak. So again, each of these line items has their budget amount that it's going to change these subcontractors' contracts. Now, Sage is smart enough to know when I enter in the subcontractor that's involved to pick up the contract that's affected. And so once I enter in that information, Sage is going to create a change order for my subcontractor for this change amount. So we won't mistakenly get alerted that we're exceeding the budget because we now have a change order covering it. Now, Sage also utilizes the statuses on the change order screen heavily. So the change order statuses control where it is in the process. So when you first create it, it defaults to an open status, meaning that it hasn't been approved, but it hasn't been rejected. And it's not until I mark it approved that it actually goes and makes the change to our budget, it makes the change to the subcontractor. So once my client has approved this, I mark it approved. Now it's pushing those changes out into the budget, to the subcontractors. But then it also gives me the opportunity to create an invoice. So if I'm invoicing my clients separately for their change orders, well, all I have to do is come down here to invoice, and Sage will create an invoice for me. But because I've got these different statuses, I'm able to keep up with what changes are still open and make sure that I've cleared those all before I close out my job. So now that we've issued our change orders, we're ready to start billing our clients. And I think Sage is a good product for billing, and it can handle really all the billing needs of a typical construction office because we have so many different methods. We can do just simple invoices. If you have maybe a smaller remodel project that you just need to issue a one-time invoice for. We also can do a progress style billing if you get into more sophisticated billing needs. We also can handle time and material or cost plus billing, where we'll keep up with all the transactions for the month or the billing cycle and apply a markup to it. And then if you are more of a spec builder where you're working with a bank and have to issue, you get a loan from the bank and have to issue requests for draws, we can also handle that too. So we can set up a draw schedule where we've got our different, inspection points or a breakdown of our budget, and then put in what percent was completed this cycle, and then this will be our request for draw that we're requesting the total of this, which is 7,300. And Sage will create a document that I can send to my bank. And then after I've received those funds and I go to my next time to bill, it will move it into this previous completed column. So really, whatever way you're billing, we should be able to handle. So we've covered quite a bit so far. We've talked about estimating and scheduling. We've looked at how to set up budgets and purchase orders and subcontracts. We talked about issuing change orders and different methods of billing. Why don't we move into some of the reporting that's generated from this? There's quite a few reports in Sage, depending on what level of detail you're looking for, whether if you're looking for a lot of detail, maybe some more higher level summarized detail. Sage has also quite a bit of home builder specific reports that they designed, where it lets you compare multiple projects side by side against each other, even breaking it down on a per square foot basis. So we'll just take a look at a couple of reports, one being this job settlement report. And this report pulls in a lot of the pieces that we've been tracking in Sage. It pulls in, scroll a little bit down here. It pulls in our budget plus any changes. If we have any upgrades, it shows those upgrades separately. Shows our cost to date, any commitments, which are those open purchase orders, and what our variance is. Now, these reports, if I've got questions, I can drill into them. So if I want to know what makes up a number, for example, like what makes up this number, well, I can just double click and drill in and see those transactions. And I can drill all the way back to the actual payable invoice and look at the details. Now, we also have this paperclip tool up here. And this is a place where I can attach documents. So I could have attached a scanned image of this payable invoice, and I'd be able to see this by clicking on the paperclip, and it would let me pull up that scanned image. And that paperclip is available throughout. So it's in the change orders, it's in subcontracts where I can attach documents to review later on. And those could be PDFs, those could be Excel spreadsheets, they could be Word documents. And they live within the Sage program, so even if the original document gets moved or deleted, you're still a copy in Sage right where you need it, where you're looking at that AP invoice or that change order. Now, another report that I like is this gross profit report, where this report lets me compare several projects side by side. And if I'm more of a production builder, I can see the type of model, the lot number even, and the close date, and compare these different prices in my margins. So that lets me get a good idea of, how a particular model is working, or overall how my projects are producing, how my projects are producing for me. And there's lots of reports in Sage, and maybe there's reports that you're sitting here thinking, I want to get those on a regular basis, or I'd like somebody to send them to me. Well, we do have the ability to schedule reports. So if this report's a report you really like, you want to get it maybe weekly, you can schedule that report to send to yourself or to a group of people. You can come under and say, I want it to be emails, pick the users you want it to go to, say what duration you want it to go out on. I want it to go out every Tuesday at 10 a.m. And then I can put in a description of what it is. And then I click save. Once I've done that, Sage is going to email me or that group of users this report every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Now it saves me from having to go in and run the report. Now I've got it right in my email, that I can reference back anytime, anywhere. You don't want to spend a lot of time on accounting. Sage has a full accounting system. We're going to be able to cover everything from, entering miscellaneous checks to journal entries to bank reconciliations. We also can produce all your standard financial reports, whether that's an income statement or a balance sheet, general ledger. We also can handle all the accounts payable, entering those invoices, printing checks, doing 1099s at the end of the year. And if you do payroll, we can handle payroll, including job costing those employees to jobs. So I think the last place that I always like to end on is our dashboard, where Sage really pulls everything together into a quick screen for you to access. So from the dashboard, I can customize what I want to see. I can add and remove different content that's important to me. Maybe I want to see more financial information, where somebody else may want to see more project-related information. Each user that's given access to this can pick what they want to see. On mine, I'm going to see change orders that haven't been approved. So if I have a question on why I've got some change orders that haven't been approved, well, I could drill in and see those details on those change orders. I also can see a summary of my income. So here I could drill in on this mini P&L and get to more details. I can see who owes me money, who I owe money to, summary of my bank account. So a lot of good information right at my fingertips. And I also have the ability to drill into the details. So with that, I want to open it up to any questions. That was my overview of taking you through the kind of life cycle of a project, from setting up the estimate to budgeting, scheduling, purchase orders, subcontracts, dealing with change orders, and then handling how we're going to bill that job, whether it's through a loan with the bank or it's through billing the client directly. I don't know, Tim, if we have any questions.